Well, we got a little project here today. This is a headliner out of our Bobcat S130, and it's just kind of become saggy from age. These points here and two more in the back are where it's suspended in the roof with a couple of plastic push pin sort of retainers, and some of this has just become so mushy it just doesn't even retain its shape any longer. It should be up in the air somewhat like that, and it flops down, so consequently the whole liner kind of sags in. This part's bulging up. I have it supported with a piece of plywood underneath of here, a couple blocks of 2x4s in different places just to give it its general shape. The back side of it sagged down so badly that it kind of obscured the rear window a little bit. There was a wire harness that was hanging up in the back, and that was also hanging out from underneath the upholstery, so being kind of in your vision and all that, it was just time to get this fixed. Having the plan here to try to correct this situation is I've got some drywall fiberglass screen for patching drywall, and I've got some waterproof glue. I'd considered doing fiberglass resin on this before, but this still has the upholstery on it and the foam, and I wasn't sure if that might somehow leak through this kind of cardboard type stuff and cause damage to the headliner, so I decided to go with the water-based adhesive instead. I assume that by putting a layer of this on and coating it with glue, it probably will stiffen things up considerably. At least it'll be better than it is right now. We've got some metal weights laying around on top of this. They're just some scrap materials that I had laying around in the garage, but you can see there's a pretty good bulge there. This is about where the safety bar hits the roof, so it kind of pushed up a spot in there from resting against that all the time. So I'm going to clamp this bar across here. Like I said, there's a piece of 1/2-inch plywood under the underside of this that's the same shape as this outline right here, just to give it kind of a overall shape to it. And then I'll probably put some wax paper on it to keep the glue from sticking to things, and then put weights on top of this just to get things initially started, and then once everything's kind of held in a straight position, the glue and the fiberglass tape will kind of hold everything where it belongs. But there's just so much of this that kind of flops around that it just makes it difficult to hold it up where it belongs. So I'm going to use this drywall repair tape. I've decided just to go ahead and put it in there like this. This should give me kind of an even amount of glue buildup on the surface to help stiffen things up a little bit. I was going to use some window screen, but I didn't have enough of it laying around, so I decided to just go this route. The tape does have some adhesive on the back of it, so it sticks it in place. Makes it kind of convenient. Now, next thing I have to do is just get something I can squeegee some glue on there with, and we'll get that adhered on there, and this should stiffen things up. Yeah, I'm finding all kinds of different things around the shop that I can use to hold this down. Aluminum bar from a tube bender. It just could be a hunk of wood or anything else for that matter, but it just seems to be holding this down nice and flat, so there's no springiness in it right at the moment. Have no idea how much glue to use. Never done this before. This wide putty knife seems to be doing a pretty decent job of smearing this around. And like I said, I want to get kind of a even coat on it, just so that it develops some kind of a film thickness. I wouldn't really know how much that would be just putting it directly on the material, but the fiberglass kind of gives you some depth to it. And the nice thing about it is it does have water cleanup until it starts to harden, so it's a little better to work with than the fiberglass resin that I considered using. Also considered using epoxy, but it's more of an expensive route and would involve mixing it. Just didn't seem like the kind of hassle I wanted to put up with for this particular project, so let's go the easy route with a water-based glue. And hopefully, being a waterproof glue, I won't have any issues with it softening up in the future. So we'll let that dry and then come back and shape up another area and basically repeat the same process on it. Okay, here's that first layer put on there. Looks like it's kind of stiffened things up pretty good so far. I would imagine allowing that to dry overnight is probably going to be a good plan. And I think maybe I can move on to applying some more of the material over in this other area. Go ahead and soak that down with some glue and get the next area stiffened up. I've added some fiberglass material over here, the reinforcement for drywall, and probably soak this area down later on. I want to get this other part stabilized before I get these things done out here, but these were pretty flimsy, so that'll do a lot for holding the liner up in place. Okay, well, we'll let that layer of reinforcement and glue harden up. Seems like it likes to be covered up with a second coat because it does soak in there pretty good. And we'll just let this set overnight and then come back and start reinforcing some of the other areas and stiffen those up. Okay, I added this second piece of fiberglass reinforcement tape up here to the forward part of this, and I've put 2 coats of glue on it. It's been weighted down. Seems to be quite a bit stiffer than it was now. It's not this just mushy cardboard stuff, so that seems to have helped. I've already put the fiberglass tape on here, but I got to do some things to get this leveled out the way I want it before I go ahead and firm those up. These outside pieces are loose and kind of at the wrong angles, so I'm going to go ahead and get those stiffened up. High humidity is keeping the glue from drying really fast, so I'm going to try taking this outside and let it set in the sun where it can go a little faster. This has been sitting here for almost 2 days now. In places where I'm working on, where I'm pushing things down and I don't want the glue to stick to whatever it is that I'm holding things straight and level with, I just put a piece of wax paper in there, and the glue actually dries from the other side, so it works pretty well. But just cut off strip of wax paper. I actually had a strip of that up here when I had the weight bar on top of it. The glue dried underneath of it pretty nicely. It was actually right in through here. You can't really even tell. But clamping things on here allows me to maintain a straight edge so it's not curved. So if we lift this thing up, you can see the support that I had underneath of it. This is where the safety bar was pushing into the roof. That kind of stayed in there because it's pushed into the shape of the fabric. But so far that part looks pretty decent. It's nice and flat. Didn't get any glue to run through it or anything like that, so it's still in good shape. Be good enough for a construction vehicle. So now I gotta get to work stiffening up the other areas. I mean, you can see how these mounting points are all mushy, and it's not square. The back edge is dropped down so it hangs below the rear window. I want to eliminate that and get that back up in the air where it belongs. So always keep adding fiberglass reinforcement to it and more glue until it stiffens up in the shape that I want. Okay, a couple of days have gone by since putting the reinforcing onto the headliner. I went through and touched up a few spots here with some additional glue just to stiffen things up, or a few dry spots like that I might not have gotten too well. But this stuff really, whatever that fiber paper stuff is, it really soaks up a lot of glue. So I put it on lightly on the outside to kind of seal it, and then bedded the glass tape into it to kind of get it to stiffen up, and it did stiffen it up quite a bit. It's still pretty flexible, but it's nowhere like what it was before. Now it's pretty stiff up in this area where it used to kind of sag, and the back edge is at least as straight now where it used to hang down below the window in the back. So I think I'm going to call this a successful attempt. If you want to try to do something like this yourself, be sure to test it out on something before you get fully committed to it and create a problem you didn't want. But otherwise, it looks like something that works. The glue itself stays pretty flexible. It doesn't get hard like some other materials will, so I imagine there's other things that could get stiffer to hold it, but this gave me the result I want. Okay, time to put a close to this video. Did a little work on the Bobcat and cleaned up the bucket. It had a bunch of cement in it. Knocked that out of there, gave it a quick shot of paint. Cleaned up the quick attach, gave the front of the Bobcat a little paint. But here's where the headliner is gone. And as you can see, back by the rear window, no more sag hanging down back there, no more wire harness hanging out the back of it. So pretty happy with that. It was worth messing around with. As you can see, they're just held up in there with this push pin. There's one there. There's one in the back. Another one in the back. And then you got one up here towards the front. So that's all that really holds it up, and that being jammed up underneath the edge of things around the sides and up in front. But it looks a lot nicer than it did. And for an older machine, this is pretty good to have it up and out of the way where you can see everything and it's not kind of an ugly mess hanging around up in there. It seemed to got a little bit more solid since this summer when I did it. It's at the end of fall right now by the time I got it put back in here. So it was worth doing.